Hey there, Michael. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. So, Michael, for those of the members that will be viewing this that don't know you, can you talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm my favorite subject. If I went back, and I don't want to scare you because I can make it brief, but as far back as kindergarten, I can remember having to bring a calendar to school, and each day the teacher would put a smiley face or a frowny face on it to communicate to my parents how my behavior was that day. And I don't remember any of the other kids doing that. And so from the very beginning, I felt like I was different. I remember my behavior being so challenging that I had to get a CAT scan to find out why, and being in that loud, scary machine and thinking, how messed up am I? And, in the third grade, I'm on medications and I have to see a therapist. And all I want to do is play outside with my friends. And instead, I got to stay in an office and punch a pillow and talk about my feelings. And then I have to go to take medication. And every time I had to see the nurse, the kids would call me crazy or freak. And it was that way until the eighth grade when I finally said, you know what? I'm not taking medication. I'm not going to therapy anymore. And that year I was suspended 23 times. So, I had this illness that, I guess it made me do things that I didn't want to do. I didn't have an ability to think before I acted. It caused risk taking behaviors, and it caused me issues into college and high school. Things weren't as bad, but when I got to college and I took my first drink, alcoholism and mental disorder ran into each other. And once I took a drink, I couldn't stop. And so it took me 17 years from the moment I walked into Frostburg State University in 95 to get my associate's and my bachelor's degree. And, alcoholism, unhealthy relationships, poor priorities, and mental health really got in the way of accomplishing anything I wanted to accomplish. And in 98, I got sober. And when I went back to college in 99, I was so excited because I had quit what I felt like was getting in the way of me succeeding. And yet, I have this untreated bipolar disorder. And my number one focus at that point is college. And my number one problem at that point is my ability to focus. And I think when it comes to alcohol and marijuana, a lot of times you self-medicate, even though I wasn't doing that purposely. These are substances that kept my mental illness at check. And it wasn't that I didn't want to treat my mental illness, but bipolar is just one of these things where, when you look at somebody with untreated bipolar, they're typically not someone that's going to make it to a 90-day probationary period to be able to elect the workplace health insurance, which would have been necessary to treat my disorder. I could have paid out of pocket, but meds were $400 a month. And when you can't hold a job, you can't pay for out of pocket meds. So I just was off the chain, and it caused issues getting in trouble. I had a cork board at home that had a bunch of court dates, and I would just pull one off and go to the next one. A lot of it for traffic, because at that
Yeah.
time, that's one of the biggest manifestations of my ADHD and my bipolar, is that I couldn't drive the speed limit. When I wrecked that car with my little brother in it, it was a huge wake up call. And I joined the Army because, here at the time, my sister's car was a total loss. So I went into a recruiter's office looking for a signing bonus so that at the end of basic training, I could pay her for the car. And, to go into the Army and for it to end in failure because of bipolar, essentially. And I got the bipolar disorder coming out of the Army. What a mess. And it was me kind of not in college now, screwing around, dealing with this disorder, that I committed second degree burglary. And, what had happened was I knew that there was a building that had some cash in it. And that night I went to see my dad. I was with the wrong friend at the time. He's a good guy now. But at the time, my dad had relapsed. He had 6 years of recovery. And at that point, I had about 5 years. And, here's my hero and the reason I got sober, and he's relapsed, and I spun out. And the only thing I could say about that night is I'm glad that I didn't drink. But what I did do is I broke into that building. I took that cash. I wanted to just get out of town, go to Atlantic City or New York and just not feel. And the next morning, I turned myself in when it kind of dawned on me what I had done. And I was facing 33 years in jail. And when I went in front of the judge, I went in front of the judge with the trial lawyer, a famous, powerful lawyer that I was lucky enough to be able to procure. And we ran the court case, like a trial. And we talked about bipolar, and we talked about some of the famous people that have had it, and what, there's one guy, Tara, that was going to be in the Super Bowl on Sunday.
Yep.
And on Saturday, his name is Barrett Robbins. He went down to Tijuana, got to the bars, got drunk, and never showed up for the Super Bowl. And a couple years later, he was caught in a mall at like 1 a.m., broke into a mall, and was shot 3 times by the police. And it's bipolar. And when we were done with our case, the judge said, I had my faith is a big part of my story. And I feel like I think this stuff happens all along, but with a faith background, I could see that when the judge said his college roommate had bipolar disorder and he got in a shootout with police outside their dorm, I knew at that moment that, I got the judge with the roommate that had bipolar. And he said, if you don't get help, I'm going to sentence you to jail for the rest of your life, or you're going to die a violent death. So I'm sentencing you to 5 years in the Department of Corrections. And, when he said that, my heart stopped. I didn't even bring a toothbrush, and I'm going to jail for 5 years. And he slammed the gavel down and he said, I suspend all of it. And I didn't do a day of jail. The court in Carroll County, where I'm from, you don't get away with that. And
no, you don't. I know Carroll County too, because I grew up in Howard County, which is right next door to Carroll County.
Where do you live now?
Well, I'm in North Carolina right now, but
okay.
Yeah,
I didn't think you were local. Yeah, I grew up in Howard County too. I was in Owen Brown. I went to Owen Brown Middle School for a bit.
That's great. Isn't it crazy? The world is so small.
It is so small. And if you look at the world that way, you get to meet so many interesting people. And so what he did do was he sentenced me to psychiatry, and now I had to go. And, it wasn't, an appointment or two where I realized that all of my issues up to this point were a result of untreated mental illness. Right. And that if I treated it, I could be successful, or I could be successful. I didn't know, but I knew that my problems were a result of it. So let me go attack the problem. And when I did that, it was after that I got my associate's degree, was in the honors program. I got my bachelor's degree. I graduated with a 3.87 when I was a 1.9 student when I dropped it the last time. I had the best job in my trade union as the union shop steward at the Baltimore Hilton. I got happily married and was on top of the world. And that's when I tried to pursue speaking for the first time and started speaking at my alma maters, both Towson and CCBC, because I believe that, if I could talk to college kids, and less than 50% of college students graduate with a 4-year degree in 6 years, the statistics aren't good. But I know that if I would have heard me talk my freshman, my sophomore year, I feel like it would have made a difference. So I pursued that, and that's what happened. And I think, I was riding high, and then my bipolar started to fall behind it. I was like chasing it down. It was, running hot. And my psychiatrist kept saying, Michael, get out in front of your bipolar. And he gave me a medication that would kind of knock down some of them impulses. And some of them impulses were the ones that when I was younger were to talk out in class or say something inappropriate to the teacher, or maybe to do something that it would get me in trouble, or something that was risky. And what it did is it led to infidelity. And that infidelity ruined my marriage. We went out to California to kind of run from, because it was one of the transgressions was with a married woman from my church, and my wife didn't want to be in Maryland anymore. And so we went out to California as a geographical cure. And I don't think she was ever going to forgive me, although I give her all the credit in the world for trying. But, when you talk about growth, 2 years later, I'm driving home with everything that I owned in my car, completely starting over. I was in a hotel that I checked into when I got back to Maryland, and I was evicted or thrown out because my credit card had been overdrawn. And so I was walking around a dumpster with my dog, walking my dog, and I looked in the dumpster and I saw mattresses that the hotel had thrown out. And I thought, I wonder how long they've been here, because I'm going to need a bed. And I think when I don't treat my bipolar, I'll end up at a dumpster digging for furniture every time. And so I was at complete rock bottom. What I know about rock bottom, and I've experienced a couple of them, is that when you're at rock bottom, you're just right for God's grace. And all I could do was continue to serve my church, to show up on Sundays, to just volunteer as much as I could to put one foot in front of the other. I got a job at the children's home in Catonsville, which was a group home for adolescent youth. And my message for them, though I didn't think I was qualified to be a professional speaker because I ruined my life and I did it because of the things that I did, I could tell those kids that it doesn't matter, who hurt you, your past mistakes, who abandon you, or your diagnosis, that you can accomplish anything and live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And, I moved, continued to grow to a point where I was ready. And it was after I got married to Christina, my current wife, that I started to believe again. And with her support, her full support, and she's so smart, she's so brilliant, did I try again. And, honestly, you're going to love this. But I put together the email and I'm trying to make a website. I'm trying to figure all this out. No speaking opportunities whatsoever, but I'm trying to do whatever it's going to do till I don't even know. I don't know what I still to today really don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure it out.
I don't think anybody does, by the way. I think we're all kind of just trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is that we all, and this is a couple of the takeaways I'll give you as far as having a growth mindset and growth for you is I didn't stop. And when I went, I was an audiovisual production guy, which I'd been my whole life, lighting, sound, video for live conferences. And I was the production manager, technical director for SHRM events. And I was in DC for the Volunteer Leaders Business Meeting. And I had provided all the labor too. So, I mean, this is a dream because if I'm not going to be a motivational speaker, one thing I can do is since I've always been a freelancer, general contractor for labor, is provide labor. So now I can provide the labor, mark it up, provide my labor with the best labor management they could possibly get, pay them better, but capitalize. So I could make $3,000 on a job. Now I've made 12,000 because I provided the labor. Well, that particular job went really bad. I had the wrong mix of crew that the company gave me, and I'm managing a lot of men that were acting like children, and it went bad. And the morning of the last day of ELBM, the boss came up to me and yelled and said, look, you don't know how to talk to people. And if I had it my way, if you didn't have crew coming in, like I'd throw you out of here right now. And I had this great opportunity that went away in an instant. And a guy that I really liked, who, by the way, we talk about, righting wrongs. I'm working with him in September. So despite all of that, he's hiring me again to go out with him. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm in tears because this went so bad so fast. And on top of that, my dad's dying of drug addiction, and he had fallen down the stairs and broke a rib that morning. And I got a call that I needed to go help a presenter out. And I went to the room, and it was a woman named Mary Shetty, and she's a high-level executive with SHRM. And I helped her. And I think the biggest takeaway for that is that as I engaged with her, I wasn't talking about me because I was heartbroken. I wasn't in a good space. So I talked about her. And I led with her. And I think one of the best listening skills that one of the best skills that we can have as people is listening and empathy. And in providing all that, I created such a great space for her. And in that conversation, I said to her, I said, I see that you're speaking. I want to speak too. I want to speak about mental health. And she said to me, she said, you should talk to Felix. And I said, I don't really know who Felix is. I'm just the AV guide. She got him on the phone. And what I can remember is, and Tara, there have been times my entire life where people have said they were going to do something, and you have your hopes up that they're going to do what they say that they're going to do, and it's going to open up some door, and they let us down constantly. And I'm the guy that always comes through and tries to elevate. I'm always introducing and giving people opportunities and making that call for somebody and writing a letter for somebody to go to court. And I've done that my whole life. So I let down so much, but she called. I'm thinking, no one does this, right? So she calls Felix up, and Felix will tell you, he's still, at that moment had no idea why she called him up, but we're out in the lobby area talking, and I'm telling him my story. And he told me that he was in charge of the Second Chance initiative with SHRM. And I said, I said, and inside, it's like God kicked me in the gut and said, this is your chance to give the elevator pitch of a lifetime. So I stood up and I told him, I said, I was unfaithful. My life blew up, but I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did the therapy. I did the volunteering. I did the work, and I healed. And I met my wife at a facility called Second Chance. and it was for untapped talent. It was for
Wow.
people that had been released and help them get job opportunities. And when he saw the tattoo, he grabbed my arm and stood up and said, "Michael, you have to tell Mary your story. I'm going to get her. Tell her that you tell her your story, and I tell her you want to pray for her because her brother just died an hour ago."
Oh my
And
gosh.
and
Wow. Chills.
she's in the middle of
Chills.
yeah, she's in the middle of the keynote, and he goes and pulls her off stage to come out to talk to me so I can pray for her, tell her I love her, and tell her my story.
Oh my gosh.
And all I can tell you about this whole HR thing is first of all, I've had more HR people tell me like, grab your stuff and walk me off property and tell me never to come back than friends in HR. Plus, I figured people that are in HR were also like resident assistants in college, like fun killers. So, right, we were never going to see eye to eye. But for
Love
this
it.
woman, an hour after her brother died, to go to those links for me,
Yeah.
2 days later, me and my wife decided that, and people thought I was crazy, but I found out that her brother was being buried in Iowa. And I said, let's drive to Iowa and be there for this funeral. Because I just wanted to be around people that like followed through on their word or stuck their neck out
Wow.
for other people. And when she saw my face in Iowa, she had a second there where she was trying to register. And then I saw it on her face when it dawned her, this is the guy that helped me. And so that was November of 2019. In 2020, she told me to apply to the SHRM Speakers Bureau. And when I did that, basically, and the director of the bureau told me that Mary Shetty wasn't going to take no for an answer, and that she pushed me through. And I was listed on the bureau. And if you would have saw my earlier profile, I just want to talk about mental health, but I had no idea what problems I was solving or what that looked like. And it took speaker coaching to pay for a program that was worth every penny, but a lot of money for me to come up with sellable programs that I could present on. But when I did that and revamped my profile, on November, I got an email that they wanted me to speak at VLBM, which was the same conference that I met Mary 2 years before.
Wow.
And I spoke for them, and now it's led to 15 opportunities this year. And because of the way speaker growth is, and because I'm doing so well with it, it's going to be one of these exponential growth things where as long as I do like 10, 30 will come out of it.
Yeah.
So I just got to continue to do the day to day. And I think growth for me starts with not giving up. You know, you cannot grow if you've given up, right? And then
Absolutely.
I think when it comes to growth, you know, you and I are different, but we have our things that we need to do, right, to be our best selves.
Yes.
And to be able to grow at a decent pace. And for me, you know, it's physical, mental, and spiritual.
Yeah.
Meditation, prayer, reading the Bible, exercise, nutrition, trying to stay physically healthy, and mentally seeing my psychiatrist every 3 months, taking the medication I'm supposed to take, you know, being in a group and being able to talk about my stuff. And in doing that, I can be the best person I can be and constantly water myself so I can grow. And growth is learning, always be learning, you know? So, you know, that's where I'm at with growth.
I love that. So you went from, you know, your whole life, you know, from kindergarten on, you know, as you said, you got the frowny faces, other students got the smiley faces.
Mhm.
So your whole life, you felt like a failure. You were failing in some capacity or another. And it started from a very early age. And you didn't let that deter you. So, you know, for a lot of people that are listening to this, you know, everybody gets in the face of failure from time to time, and everybody has obstacles in their life. But what struck me about your story is you couldn't have had more obstacles come your way. Literally, it started from kindergarten. You were in court. You almost went to jail.
Mhm.
You almost did, you know, you had a very bad car accident. Your little brother almost died because of your poor choices, right?
Mhm.
But you acknowledged that you had a problem, and then somebody gave you grace, the judge,
Mhm.
and the HR professional, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
And that was part of Well, that was a gift to get you out of that slump and to help you grow because you have that potential. So, how incredible of a story is that that you went from on the streets going literally in dumpsters finding mattresses
Mhm.
to speaking in public,
Mhm.
being a widely recognized public speaker, in demand.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's a beautiful story of
Mhm.
growth. What got you into public speaking? What was it? What was the real catalyst that do
Yeah,
you
it's a great question. So I'll tell you what prepared me. One thing on the growth thing too, I think is important.
sure.
I don't think judges go handing suspended sentences in for my crime,
No.
showing me that type of grace if I don't accept ownership
Yes.
over the things that I do. And I think that's very important. Like, for instance, when I was a waiter at Denny's in college, it was the chef that was causing the food to come out late. It was one thing or another that was outside of my control. But I learned that when I went to a table and said, look, this is all my fault, I take full responsibility for this, my tips were higher than the
Yes.
bills that went perfectly. And so I think part of growth is saying, hey, my bad. How can I make this right? I think growth begins with owning our mistakes. When I was young, when you got in trouble in elementary school, they were really suspend you in elementary school. So when I was disruptive, what they would do with me was they would put me in the library and they would make me do like a report on snakes. So I would sit there for an hour or two and I would research a subject and then I would have to present that in front of the class. And what that did for me was is one, I lost my fear of public speaking at a very, very young age. And
Wow.
two, if you gave me an hour on a particular subject, I knew that I could learn enough about it to present, well in front of an entire class. And this is at 6, 7, 8 years old. So when I got sober at 21, the way Alcoholics Anonymous works is, you go to a meeting and somebody speaks, and then the meeting's kind of a round robin where you might get called on to speak. And it's impromptu, right? I mean, you can kind of think about what you would say in relation to the theme of the meeting, but if you get called on unsuspectingly, you have to talk for 5 minutes off the cuff. And then inevitably a couple things would happen when I would either speak at a meeting or lead a meeting. And that is, somebody would come up to me and say, would you lead our other meeting or would you sponsor me? And I could tell by the mood in the room that when I shared, everybody listened. And you could tell by the body language and the nods that what I was saying was resonating. And I was so good at telling my story, because in AA, it's like I share my anniversary and it's like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. So it's broken down in story form. And doing that over and over and over again, I know how to bring you down to that dumpster and you get the chills and those feelings, and then bring you back up to believing at walking out of there that anything you're going through, you can accomplish success too. And being able to craft a message like that. So I knew I could do it. But when I got my bachelor's degree in 2012, I wanted every kid at 19, 20 years old like me that took a full medical withdrawal, who sat on the bench outside the admin building crying, going, what's wrong with me? I was smart. I did well in high school. I don't understand what's wrong. I wanted to go out and tell them there's nothing wrong. If you can do X, Y, and Z, you can be successful. And I wanted to go out and tell students to do that. So the first thing I did was ask my director of my honors program at my 2-year for an opportunity to speak in front of an academic audience. And he gave me the alumni keynote at a back to school dinner. And when I spoke for 12 minutes, I knocked it out of the park. That's all I've wanted to do since. And now that I'm doing, I spoke for one SHRM chapter, over 500 people. I got a standing ovation. I've been in the conference industry for 30 years. I've seen a standing ovation maybe 5 times. I would give more credit to people being in HR and people from being in Minnesota giving that standing O than me. But I think, this type of story resonates, and I'm so vulnerable. I mean, you can tell by the way I post that I'm vulnerable. So, wanting to speak is a result of wanting to help people that are hurting like me and tell them that there's healing and help, if they're willing.
Yes. And it's about going back to, what you said about, the way you post. It's transparency, right? Because and it's sharing that personal story. And that's what connects, other people to you is that personal story. Nobody benefits when we try to copy others.
No.
We only benefit when we stand out, and we stand out by telling that personal story, by sharing vulnerabilities, by sharing failures.
Mhm.
And we see that a lot on LinkedIn where everybody's boasting, about their successes,
Yeah.
but that doesn't resonate with people. What
Yeah.
resonates with people are the stories of failures, or the stories of
Yeah.
downs, right? Or the
Yeah.
stories of how you took that as a learning opportunity for growth and made the best, life out of it. That's what resonates, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I kind of I thought it would work. I thought that's what people were starving for. And again, I've been behind soundboards and video boards for 30 years. I've watched speakers my whole life, and I get it. But in a corporate space, it's daring. But if I'm sitting there and I'm on a podcast and I'm giving a message where I talk about how I was unfaithful to my wife, and I some of the links that I went to, and I could see a number of men at their desk listening to someone saying "Me too," right?
Yeah.
I've texted a prostitute and asked how much it cost, or I went to an Asian massage parlor looking for to numb and to not feel, and feeling so much shame and guilt, or being on another couch while my wife's on another couch while I'm texting another woman, to talk about those things, and to watch a man like all of a sudden sit up and turn the radio up and go, this guy feels how I feel, and he's talking about my worst moments. To have done that in the middle of an HR audience in Minnesota, a corporate event, and for it to
Wow.
land the exact same way, which is thank you so much for your story. The wins, the money is incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable how much money I could make if I was a full-time speaker and author. But the people that reach out to me after and start talking about their mental health issues, and the stuff that they're dealing with, and I can start kind of referring them to, give them suggestions and advice and whatnot. That's why I'm doing this. And that's also how I know I'll be successful, because at the end of the day, this started with a desire to help people graduate college. This now
Wow.
it's a desire to help someone at a dumpster. I want someone in a dumpster to find my book and read it and go, it doesn't have to be this way anymore. Serious mental illness, when you think about it, bipolar,
Yeah.
serious depression, schizophrenia, these serious mental illnesses, you kind of you when you think that, you think, well, what does that look like? When we think severe alcoholism, you think a guy in a trench coat, homeless, with a bag and a bottle. It's like that with mental health, serious mental illness. You're not thinking professional speaker, 2 college degrees. So my message is, the bridge from serious mental illness to success is short, right? And I've crossed it. So come
Yeah.
follow me. And people don't know what they don't know. But I
Yeah.
want to tell everybody out there struggling, if you can accept and treat your mental disorder, you can do what I'm doing too.
That's right. And you hit the nail right on the head. Success comes also by helping others, right?
Yes.
It's on a collective scale. There's no true success if you're self-serving.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And by sharing your story, you are inadvertently helping others, because they see that they're not alone in
Yeah.
the struggle, right? And and they see that somebody else can have empathy for what they're going through, and that may be enough for somebody to say, wow, my life is important. I'm not going to kill myself.
Mhm.
I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to do drugs anymore. I'm not going to be abusive anymore. Hearing somebody's story couldn't be more of a resonating power, because it shows someone else that's going through your same thing that it is possible to overcome. And that's why it's important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you have overcome so much adversity, Michael, and I'm proud that we're friends.
Yeah,
And
me too.
I am really excited for the future, because like I said before, public speaking is something that I want to get into. And then we just kind of,
Oh,
connected, and
did
it
I
was,
send you
and
that the curriculum for my
yes,
I
yes,
did.
you
Were you able to
did.
access that?
Yep,
Okay, perfect.
absolutely.
You're on your way, because
Yep,
that's what I did that turned me into somebody that had a desire to somebody that was a professional speaker. So
yep.
good, good.
It's awesome. So I can't wait, for my first public speaking gig, because it's coming, and helped, you were the catalyst for me to help bridge that gap for me. And the opportunities that could potentially come from that are innumerable, really. So
Yeah, I think you got some what sounds like you were pretty confident that some of the things you're able to do just in this
yeah,
could lead to a lot of exposure. I want you to think about as you go through that program, what is a signature program that you and I could collaborate on?
yeah,
When I think about male and female, maybe it's male toxic masculinity from a leadership standpoint, or whether it's sexual harassment or something where some of the things that I felt like were minor that were not minor, and then there's major, but it's the minor things, right? Think about a program, because with my HR contacts right now, I could easily go to some of these SHRM chapters and say, look, I've partnered with Tara. We want to do this program, because the more solutions I can offer HR programs, the more opportunities that'll come from that. So think about a collab, and let's go out and conquer this speaking thing together.
yes, I'm all for that. You see how this works, everybody? When you connect with other people on a genuine level,
Yeah.
and I connected with you and we had no expectations, right?
Yeah.
I think that's important, to connect with people without expectation of anything in return. And then you know what happens? If you're grateful, opportunities come your way. And this is the exact prime example of it, because if we hadn't engaged with each other, or if we did it on a surface level, we would have never bridged this gap. Because I guarantee you, this time next year, we're going to be on stage together, and it's going to be amazing.
That would be amazing. And the thing about expectations, and I talked to you about the people that have let me down, serenity is inversely proportional to expectations. So when we put expectations on people and they let us down, our serenity level is effective. I'm heartbroken because this person didn't do what they said they were going to do. So I have to make sure I temper my expectations, and like you said, not have any. And then it's all bonus. And the other thing too is, I told my clients, and I have a background in addictions counseling, that every day is an audition. And I think with the addicted population, there's so many issues that they have personally that they stay stuck inside their head. But if you can keep your head open, when you and I run into each other in the elevator, you'll know, my wife will tell you about it. It's amazing. So many people, I make relationships in Chick-fil-A lines. I make relationships in hotels. I meet, because I'm willing to talk to everyone. So when I'm in the elevator, silence, I just can't have it. So I'll say something funny, and it'll lead to a relationship that's lifelong, that's now professional. And I think that it's important to always approach every day like it's an audition, and that there's so much opportunity around us if we'll just keep our head open and pay attention.
Absolutely. So well said. So profound. Michael, I will leave your contact information in your bio. And I hope everybody connects with you, reaches out, because you have a fantastic story. You're an inspiration, and you're going to be an inspiration to thousands, if not more. And I cannot wait to see where your life's journey takes you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Have a wonderful day.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.